I sprained my ankle really badly once, I said, as I opened the meal box. I was running sideways and stepped on the edge of my shoe with all my weight and went down hard. Coles, a lizardly fellow who didn't wear shoes, nodded politely.
Sounds painful.
Mimi, who didn't even have feet, waved a tentacle and asked, How does the shoe factor into it exactly? I stuck my leg out from under the table. The flat part's at the bottom, and if it's bent to the side like this, then you could end up stepping down and really tearing up your ankle.
Right. Got it,
Mimi said with his rough voice, curling a tentacle.
I've seen that happen with machine couplings. Those bones of yours sure give you a lot to keep track of, with everything needing to face the correct way.
I'm sure you just have different problems, I said, going back to my food. Squishing instead of breaking will only take you so far.
Far enough, Mimi objected. I've squished into safe places when someone with rigid limbs would have gotten crushed by falling hull panels. Squishy is the way to go as far as I'm concerned.
He picked up a flat spoon by sticking his suction cups to it and scooped up a lump of something from the big seafood sample platter in the middle of the table. Coles took the heat seeker fork off his finger. Really, it's a little cuff with tines sticking out to keep his claws from getting dirty, and he held up his pointer finger in silence. He pointed at it with his other scaly hand.
Yes, Mimi grumbled around his mouthful. Your point?
Very pointy, Coles agreed.
He mimed running a claw across Mimi's nearest tentacle.
How often do you get cut by points like this?
Mimi scoffed.
Rarely. I'm not a child.
You're also not protected,
Coles said as he put the fork back on. It clicked quietly against his scales.
I wouldn't be too proud of that squish.
How often do you cut yourself with your own claws? Mimi retorted.
Rarely,
Coles grinned, with a long jaw full of teeth.
I'm not a child.
I put in, I've cut myself with a fingernail before. They both turned to look at me. How? Asked Mimi. One time I was half asleep and brushing hair out of my eyes, and I guess I needed to trim that nail because I gouged a little chunk out of my forehead. I pantomimed the misadventure. Definitely one of my stupider injuries. Coles nodded.
I can see how that would make the list.
Mimi leaned several tentacles on the table, rotating to look at me properly.
What else is on that list?
Oh, lots of things, I said. Misjudged the edge of a step, paper cuts in general, got my hand too close to an animal that was a known biter. Oh, and there was the time I got fluffy holiday socks as a gift and slipped on the stairs. Thudded all the way to the bottom. Really hurt my tailbone in that one. I threw those away immediately. Mimi was looking quietly judgmental, but Coles asked,
You have a tailbone, but no tail?
Yeah, it's just part of the hip structure, I said. Some of the animals we're distantly related to do have tails, but humans don't have anything you can actually see. And yes, it can break, I added for Mimi's sake. It's very painful. With a gravelly chuckle, he said,
I bet it is.
Coles volunteered.
I've hurt my tail by falling on steps too. Not a bad injury, thankfully.
Mimi just smiled some more and scooped up another chunk of fishy whatever. He seemed to be picking out all the pale ones, though so far Coles hadn't complained. My food was a pre-made collection of broccoli, chicken, breadsticks, and a fruit medley, plus a cookie. I gazed at it, thoughts elsewhere. What would happen if you fell down the stairs? I asked Mimi. Just bruises, or would you be in danger of rupturing something? I pictured a cartoonish bundle of tentacles flailing down to land in a pile at the bottom.
First of all, I just grab on and stop falling, Mimi told me, gesturing with the spoon. Second of all, that would take quite an impact.
Coles forked a pale bit when he wasn't looking.
How much of an impact? Have you jumped off a high place before?
Mimi glared at him.
Now why would I ever do that?
Coles ate the mouthful.
Science!
I agreed. Science is important. It would be good to know whether you can land like a cat and be fine, or roll an impact instead of going splat.
I'll leave that for people like you who actually enjoy being in high places, Mimi said. Mo told me all about the time you fell out of a tree during a delivery run.
It wasn't my fault the branch broke under me, I said. That's why you've got to be prepared.
I'll prepare by avoiding that nonsense, thanks. Working with engine parts is dangerous enough.
Cole speared another chunk of food.
Any memorable injuries from the job? The worst I've gotten while doing translation work is eye strain.
Well, Mimi said, delaying while he stirred up the sample platter, I have gotten a couple tentacles pinched and burned myself in an overheated element, but that was just because something else malfunctioned and I had to move out of the way. Poor timing.
Coles tossed a water sphere into his mouth and popped it with his back teeth.
Trilly would call that honourable battle wounds against inanimate objects.
Sure felt like it, Mimi agreed. Sometimes the engine really does pick a fight.
I nodded vigorously. I think our biggest cargo net has it out for me personally. I've broken a nail or scuffed a knuckle the last 3 times I tried to use it. Honourable battle wounds for sure.
Trilly would agree,
Coles told me.
Yes?
Hissed a voice from the door.
What would I agree to?
Coles craned his neck up at the looming black and red nightmare that was his co-worker in the translation room.
That injuries from inanimate objects count as honourable battle wounds when you're telling the story later.
Trilly angled her exoskeleton body so she was even taller, fussed eyes gleaming in the lights.
I would never allow myself to be injured by a thing.
You sure?
Coles asked, inspecting his fork.
Even that time the support strut on your chair broke right when you sat down? You remember? It was after figuring out that intentionally dense and poetic greeting bundle, and you were so proud.
He looked at us while Trilly hissed quietly.
We were working on that one for a long time, and the customer was impatient. But she figured out the last line and we sent it, then collapsed in triumph. Right onto the floor, in her case. Almost cracked a limb.
I tried not to laugh, but I could tell there were a lot of teeth in my smile. Mimi was grinning too. I said, Trilly, you win the contest for stupidest injury. Trilly regarded us for a moment, mandibles flexing, then declared,
I am the winner in all things.
She swept off down the hall in a whirl of shiny exoskeleton and pride, leaving the rest of us to finish our meals and think of more anecdotes to share.